Peanut brought us flowers. That's good.
Good afternoon. My name is Marian Kromkowski, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters here in Leelanau County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and we hope to influence public policy through education and advocacy. We never ever support or oppose candidates or parties. Men and women who are 18 years of age or older and American sinners, American citizens. You don't have to be a sinner to join the league, although we may have some sinners. May join the league. The Leelanau League currently has 126 members, of which 30% are men. More information on the league and how to join are on our brochures, which are here on the table. Dues are $60 a year or $90 for a household. We have more information on our website, LWVLC.org. Today, the league hosts a forum entitled, "Are You Prepared for an Emergency in Leelanau County?" After the presentation of our panelists, we will take a short break and then have our monthly business meeting. Members are encouraged to stay and participate. Non-members are welcome also to stay and observe. Vina Michael, our past president and one of the organizers of this specific event, will now introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. First, I would like to thank Peter Walcott and Ann McGinnis, who helped plan the program today. And if you'll notice on this front table, there are all sorts of handouts for you to take with you. So make the loads lighter for the people who brought them, please. Let me introduce our panelists who so graciously agreed to be with us today. I was thinking if the weather was really rotten, only two of them work in the building. One is just down the road, and the sheriff just needs to cross over. So I guess we picked a good group for today. In alphabetical order, Matt Ansorgi was born and raised in Leelanau County in the Toms West Bay area. He graduated from Traverse City Senior High School and went on to earn a bachelor's degree in criminology from Eastern Michigan University. Matt worked as an executive security coordinator for Ford Motor Company at the World Headquarters building in Dearborn. Moving back home, he was appointed Director of Emergency Management and 911 for Leelanau County this last April. Sheriff Borkovich worked 32 years for the Department of Natural Resources and 28 years as a conservation officer. He was elected Leelanau County Sheriff in 2012 and is planning to run for re-election next year. Or I guess it's this year, isn't it already?
Already.
He has extensive operational experience in tactical training and emergency response issues. Mike has been part of several other league programs over the past 3 years. April Messias has been the director of Leelanau County Senior Services for the past 3 years. Her career began in the field of social work, working with families who had experienced domestic violence. She discovered the joy and passion of working with seniors during her graduate studies and changed her career focus to meeting the needs of seniors. April holds a BA degree in psychology from Michigan State University and a Master's of Arts degree in counseling education and counseling psychology, along with a graduate certificate in health and holistic health from Western Michigan University. Jim Reardon, a native of Traverse City, began his career in 2004 with the Michigan State Police. With the Michigan State Police Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division as an emergency planning specialist, helping communities, colleges, and tribal entities in their emergency planning activities. After 9 years of service with MSP, Jim moved back to northern Michigan and served a short period of time as a zoning administrator. Since November 2013, Jim has served as the Health Department's Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. He is also an adjunct professor at NMC in the Environmental Science program. Each panelist will speak about 10 minutes on his or her topic, and we will hold all questions until everyone has spoken. I think we'll begin alphabetically with Matt.
Good afternoon. How's everybody this afternoon? Yeah. Well, a few of you have had lunch, so I'll try not to bore you to death. But I'm not going to, get into an in-depth discussion of what you need in your emergency plan, what kind of kit you need to build at home. What I want to drive home today is the importance of having that, the importance of having a plan at home. So we'll start off with a few pictures that we had from the August 2nd storm, and I want you to imagine if this was your house. Okay, this is very possible to happen to anyone in Leelanau County, as we were reminded ever so elegantly in August. But can have quite a few things that can happen to your house. Weather is a major factor here in Leelanau County. One tree, just one, can cripple a house. Now, that tree's size compared to the house itself, you can imagine it's probably going to pull off electrical lines, which will affect houses like this as well. Now, you can call the electrical company all you want for them to come out and hook the power back up to your house, but they're not going to touch it until those trees are gone. So do you have a plan in order to get your house free of any kind of debris? Can you dig yourself out of snow? Okay, these are all things that we have to prepare for in Leelanau County. So, have you ever thought about preparing your family for an emergency? As you can see, it can come in many different forms. So, a good rule of thumb is to prepare for 72 hours worth of self-sufficiency. So how would you look after your family for 72 hours? Could you cope without power, heat, or water for 72 hours? And how would you contact your family that wasn't there at home? And how would you receive information about what was going on? So, first you need to know your risks. So you need to be familiar with what Leelanau County has in store for us. You need to make a plan. Everybody loves this picture. It was a little goofy. I couldn't help myself but put it in there. But obviously he had a plan because it took him some time to put those flippers on. But you do need to get a kit. Now, picture of the United States. That's not a coastline, is it? That affects a lot of people. Having power out in that big of a region, that's a big deal. And you also need to practice your plan. Okay? Now this is a local picture. So some common misconceptions about having a plan. Most emergencies are short-lived. And, we'll never have to deal with that kind of thing here in Leelanau County. It just doesn't happen. And there are a lot of emergencies that, you just can't prepare for. And that is just simply untrue. Okay? The only proof that you need to cite to anybody who gives you that excuse is the storm that we undertook in August this past year. So, imagine this was your house. You're not going to be able to live there, are you? How would you be able to support your family for 72 hours outside of your house? Do you have a plan on where to go? Okay? Preparing takes too much time. And I agree, it can be a daunting task. But when you do take the time to prepare, you reduce the fear and anxiety that you and your family endure through a disaster. You reduce the overall impact of the disaster on your family. These are all very good points to have your family come out on top. But if you do fail to prepare, you lengthen the amount of time that you and your family have to adapt to the disaster, causing more stress. And you increase the amount of stress that you do have to deal with through the disaster. Now, this is a fantastic photo after a storm. This is what you want to see. You want to see the power company coming to rescue you, put the power back into your house. But if you look at the date on here, this is a European format, 8/7, August 7th. When was the storm? The 2nd. That's 5 days. Obviously, you can't get out your driveway. Could you support yourself? Could you stay self-sufficient for 5 days? Obviously, for 5 days, you're going to have some food. So what you want to think about when you prepare for the food aspect is you need to have a long storage life. Now, canned foods, they do keep, but typically about a 2-year shelf life. Now, if you ask my wife, it's about 6 months. So you do have to kind of prepare for all that. And you want the food that you have to require little or no cooking. You don't want to use your water resources, and any refrigeration is probably not going to be available to you. And you want to stay away from salt and spicy food, because that can increase the water intake that you're going to need during the disaster. And you have to remember to meet the needs of everyone in your family. If you have diabetics, you're going to plan your food differently. But you also need to remember your pets. Okay, those are overlooked quite a bit. And you also have to worry about water. Now, a lot of people do know this. How much water should you plan for? Anybody have an idea? A gallon a day per person. Okay, now, it is important to say that if you're in a hot climate or in the summertime, you're probably going to need a little bit more water per person. Pregnant women need more water. Sick people need more water as well. So if you think of a family of 4, you need 12 gallons of water just to last 72 hours. Anything on top of that, 5 days for the electrical company to get you, 12 gallons might not be enough. But you should also include an unscented bottle of bleach. Now, I know that the lavender smells all wonderful, but if you're going to use that to disinfect any kind of drinking water that you have, do not use a scented. So you want regular, straight up chlorine bleach. And it's typically about a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. So only a 1/4 teaspoon for a gallon of water. Now, the most important thing that you can do for your family during an emergency, in order to boost morale and reduce stress. No, not drink. But make the best of any situation. Now, that's a makeshift refrigerator right there, isn't it? So, if you can make the best of any situation, it does reduce stress on your family, and that's the most important thing to get through an emergency. So, again, their kits are going to be different. Your needs for your kits are going to be different. I don't want to pound into you what you should have. What I want you to do is realize what you need to address. So everybody's family is different. Not everybody drinks beer, so that is all I have.
Very good.
Matt,
Yes.
did you take in consideration of flushing toilets when you filled that gallon of water?
No,
I had to go down the lane with 5 gallon buckets.
You're next.
You like me at the table or the podium? What will work best for everybody?
Wherever you want.
Mach's nicht aus, if Deutsch. Makes no difference. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. A very, very important topic we're covering today. Matt, that was great. And we all work together. Whether it's Ann Sorge, Borkovich, Reardon, besides, we all work together, and I want you to be assured of that. Our resources are joint. I will call on them, they call on me, we work very smoothly, so I thank you all for that. Okay, to begin with, there's some topics I'll cover, and one of them is going to be CBRNE. Everybody know what that stands for? Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive. Okay, these are common threats that we face now in terms of terrorism, and that's what I'm going to focus on in my segment. The potential for terrorism is there every day, regardless of political affiliation. We're not immune from it because we live up north here. We live in a wonderful place. We tend not to lock our doors, tend to leave our keys in the ignitions, but truthfully, we're prone to it as anybody else. We have had events since I've been sheriff. I started on the 1st of January 2013, and one of the first things we had in October of 2013 in the village of Suttons Bay is we had a individual building nerve agent, actual military class there, nerve agent, and also explosives as well. So that had to be dealt with us, the FBI, state police, everybody jointly worked together. It was also during the time period when the federal government was shut down for, I believe it was 16 days, and we had some issue with disposing of some of the chemicals. We also had to detonate 2 explosive devices that were assembled, and that was done over in a county gravel pit quietly. A couple times that evening of the 4th of September, there were loud explosions that could be heard about 5 miles away, shook windows and doors, but that was done in a controlled setting by state police and FBI. And a lot of that stuff we don't talk about openly. We don't go into more detail than that, other than it came here to us in this community. Okay, we do have people who are constantly on the internet looking at how to make bombs or how do you make poisons, how do you assemble things out of household items, and we're very cognizant that that's a growing issue. There seems to be less emphasis on baseball and snowball fights and sledding down hills and things like that, and seems to be more emphasis on the internet, and the internet can be a dangerous place. So I caution all of you as leading adults in the community to watch what your children are doing and your grandchildren are doing. It's very, very important because that's where most of this mindset comes from. Those of you who are teachers, I especially call on you to help us, though you may be retired or slowing down in your career, or if you're actively teaching, remember how feeble those minds are. And I have a real problem with a kid being in a room by himself at night on the internet unsupervised. And we have the ability to monitor that now, in the sense that if an arrest is made, we have warrants and we seize that equipment, we can review that, and you'd be shocked to know what these kids are doing. I mean, a lot of people, my wife includes, on the internet all the time. She's curious what happened at Kansas State University yesterday at her old sorority. She's curious about MSU's baseball schedule. She's curious if she can find her 105th pair of black boots on sale somewhere. So I know a lot of you spend a lot of time on the internet, but you have to understand that children, especially children that are before age of reasoning, and I will throw out to you that males' brains aren't fully developed until they're 26 or 27 years old, and females' brains, fortunately, develop a little bit faster, maybe 22 or 23, but it's a realistic factor we deal with. A kid who's playing Xbox all day and shooting people and blowing things up and killing people and getting points for killing people, getting points for shooting people, it's just on and on and on. No sense of realism, just a sense of exhilaration, exhilaration, exhilaration. These kids have, I guess, what I would term electronic addiction disorder. EAD, if they have all the acronyms on TV now for everything, so I'll start it, it's EAD. I believe they're generationally hooked on these violent video games and internet and phones in general, so it's something you have to take an active role in because that's where a lot of the problem comes from. All right, C for chemical threats. Chemical threats are under your sink, they're in your bathroom, they're in your garage. There's a lot of stuff out there that people can make bombs out of. There's a lot of things you can do with chemicals that don't include bombs, and one of them would be anhydrous ammonia. You know how we can take you with ANFO. Basically, you're going to mix fertilizers with diesel fuel, make explosives. That's as simple as it is. Or you mix common household chemicals for cleaning toilets or cleaning sinks or things you have in the garage together, and you can make a chemical issue. We have people that dabble in biological warfare, and unfortunately that's being done in many countries, though the U.S. program was basically slowed down or stopped by Richard Nixon, President Richard Nixon, in approximately 1969. It still persists around the world. We have a very active threat that some of those biological warfare materials are still capable of doing great harm, and they're in third world countries, and I don't need to say anything more about that. There's a lot of instability, and the dollar is king there. So there's your C, B, and your R, radiological nuclear concerns. We call them RDDs, radiological dispersal devices, And an RDD is basically simply put a backpack or suitcase bomb. Basically a suitcase bomb is enough to level the city of Flint or Grand Rapids, something like that. And when I say level it, I'm not talking about destroy every building. I'm talking about sometimes they mix that with a chemical agent or with a biological agent, and there's radioactive fallout that comes after that. So these things are concerns we have. So CBR, next is N, it's the nuclear end of it. When we talk about the radiological, the nuclear, do you have the potential for some nuke to come out of a third world country, or even maybe Russia, when Russia went through its collapse? We know that there are several devices that are missing. Intelligence-wise, our intelligence community knows that there are devices missing. We don't know where they are, truthfully. I'm not sure Russia knows where they are. But for a price, most anything can be bought, and that's unfortunate. And then finally, the explosives. There are people that bring hand grenades back from war. They mix gunpowder concoctions. Frankly, a gallon of gasoline and a match and a sanitary napkin is a perfect Molotov cocktail. So there's a lot of threats that are out there for feeble-minded people to do things like that. And one of the things we do as a society, we tend to glamorize, not intentionally, but when two people will be involved with a school shooting, all they want is notoriety. Okay, it's an emotional thing, and if you remember names, and I right off the top of my head could throw them out, I refuse to do it, but the two from Columbine, I'm guessing if I gave you a piece of paper in here and you all wrote down, you'd know who those two names are. I don't think they're that significant to remember their names. They did a terrible, horrific thing to our teachers, to our children, and they upset our society and the world to the point where we wonder what's going on out there, what's going on in the world, are we safe here? So these are all things we're very concerned with from the law enforcement perspective. And we have a lot of other things that'll come up that are maybe not in that realm of the CBRNE or main threats. What about active shooters? If you're going to put the person's face and name on TV after they do a horrific act like a shooting in a mall or something, or they walk into the one school like they did, the kid had 2 butcher knives, do you remember hearing about that? Start cutting everybody. I think he cut 17 or 18 people. Finally, I think it was a gym teacher and a football player just drilled him on the ground, just took him out. Boy, heroes, just like Flight 93, right? Just total heroes to step forward, do what needed to be done at the time. Very dangerous to them. I don't recall the exact detail, but I believe they were cut or injured as well. So we need people to step up. We need people to be heroes. And we need people, if they see it, say it. If you see something weird going on, if you see somebody dabbling around too much with chemicals, or you're hearing explosions at night, you're hearing things that just don't make sense, doesn't hurt at all to call 911 and just say, hey, I just heard a big explosion near the Schaumburg Road County gravel pit. It was a huge explosion. If we're doing a detonation in there for training or something, we'll say we're aware of it. Thank you for calling. It was a training exercise. But if you don't report it, we don't know about it. We don't know that someone isn't making bombs. You all are probably aware that about 1.5 years ago, we had a National Park Service toilet blown up, basically blown right off its foundation. And we're pretty up on that, what's going on in that right now. There haven't been any formal arrest yet, but pretty aware of what's going on. Basically blew it out of smithereens. Basically something that they didn't bring explosive in from the Middle East or from Russia or Germany or somewhere, just homemade type stuff. So something for you to keep in mind. If you see it, say it. What's the best thing you can do? Take that phone out of your pocket. You all have a camera on it. Get a picture of a license plate, get a picture of the individual or the scene, and leave. Don't stick around if it's a dangerous area, but you can be so much help to us by reporting this. See it, say it. They used to say, report it, see it, say it. Tell us what you think, because our dispatchers are going to want to know what you saw that looked out of the ordinary, what you heard. Did you notice a car? You didn't get a plate? Well, was it a station wagon, a van, a sedan? Was it new or old, dark or light color? Was it a Chevy or Ford? All that stuff you probably have bounced around up in there, and you can regurgitate that back to our dispatch, but you have to be involved. The more clinical evidence you can get with things like your camera, the better. So that's a huge help to us. We're also involved in the August 2nd incident. We had 19 days where the sheriff's office was in full gear. We had deputies working almost around the clock. That involved a lot of overtime. Luckily, with the help of the emergency management, county administrator, and the board, we were able to recoup, I don't know what percentage of that money, Matt? 99%. All entities worked together on that. Yeah, it was the deputies out there getting flack from people. When you couldn't drive around to see the damage and the deputy said, I'm sorry, you can't go down the road, the deputy took the flack. Well, I live down that road. We still can't go in there because there's power lines there. We're trying to get the power up to help you. If you drive over them, you could jeopardize the life of a power worker. Okay, you can't go down there. Well, I have to go down there. My dog's there. You know, it was one thing after another, and there was a lot of vehemence toward the deputies. It's always us in uniform that take the heat. You know, when San Bernardino happened, the police were the greatest thing in the world. They showed up with armored personnel carriers, helmets, vests, body armor, guns. They took care of what was a true national security event. And granted, it was on a microcosmic basis. It's a microcosm compared to like 9/11 happened, you know, in New York City. But where would they have stopped? And if they weren't arrested, if they weren't taken out through that, what would happen to the next one? They would have been emboldened to do it again. So it's very important that you realize how we have to react to things. We are prepared for a what we call a MOP event, for some type of an etiological event. Let me explain etiological. Ebola. Is that enough of an explanation? Etiological event, Ebola. Can we control Ebola? I think the CDC did a wonderful job, but it was a huge effort. The Army was involved, the military, the police, everybody was involved. How many of you saw the sheriff's deputy in Texas? Raise your hand if you saw this. Right on CNN and Fox News, sheriff's deputy walk up on the porch and escort a gentleman off his porch, take him into custody because he had Ebola. Did you all see that? There were a bunch of people walking around with level A and C suits, respirators, Scott air packs, SCBA, walking around, you know, look like Darth Vader, breathing funny and all that stuff. Walking around, and there's one guy that wasn't in a MOP suit. The MOP suits are in reference to personal protective gear, okay? Personal protective equipment, it's known as PPE. One person, it was a sheriff's deputy. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So we bought MOP suits, and we did have gas masks, and guess what? Our filters expired in 2009. Several years before I took over as sheriff, we dig this stuff out and find out the filters are all expired. Now, Matt and I are working together through Region 7 Homeland Security. We might have to go private. We might have to approach a board. We need filters for our gas masks. What's the Zeta virus? Anybody hear about that this week? You got the Zeta virus. You got Ebola. You got saprolegnia, cytosinosis. You got botulinum. You've got all kinds of things. DVE. You know, you've got botulism in birds dying on Lake Michigan. Although that's an avian botulism, it's still a concern for health. We're not sure. Theoretically, it doesn't transmit to humans, but anthrax does. Anthrax can be in a cow that died 3 years ago in the soil. In fact, it goes generations and centuries and the soil stays alive. Anthrax is something that people will mess around with and try to spread around. And one last thing, I guess I'd say, ricin. We all know what castor beans are, right? You know what castor beans are? You buy a bag of castor beans, and castor plants are real hardy. They're nice plants. The beans grow, you stick them in the ground. Guess what eats castor beans? Moles. Both varieties, star-nosed and eastern. You know, the dry soil and the wet soil moles. Does anyone in here have an affinity for moles, by the way? I don't think we have too many mole fans. Moles are quite commonly poison. People put Wrigley chewing gum. I don't know if Wrigley started that or what, or how they did that. I know Skin So Soft was the big mosquito repellent for some time, but somebody used Wrigley chewing gum. They would stick it into mole tracks, and the moles theoretically would eat it and get all gummed up, and they would die. Truthfully, what kills moles is zinc phosphide. Doesn't take hardly anything viscerally to touch that, and the animal's dead, but it also kills robins and blue jays and deer and rabbits.